Hey.
Ann and Dan here with a midweek update. I've always wanted to say that. I'm not staying today. I just wanted to say hello. I miss you. Going back to the studio.
Coming
Bye.
to you from the front porch, and you're leaving me alone?
Yeah, all by yourself.
Okay.
Good luck.
Work hard.
Bye.
So this morning I was sitting out in my office at the Cove, door open, beautiful morning, these great summer mornings. And I was having my quiet time, praying, thinking, journaling a little bit, and I started looking around my office, and my eyes kind of landed on this canoe paddle, which actually hangs from the ceiling, suspended from the ceiling, and is above one of my bookcases. And this paddle is from a couple of excursions to the Boundary Waters canoe area. So we lived in Minneapolis between 1996 and 1999, and I was able to take 2 men's canoe trips with a bunch of guys up into the Boundary Waters. When we moved there, I had no idea what that was. I'd never heard of it before, and if you haven't, there are just miles and miles and miles set apart as preserve up against the northern border on the Minneapolis side, and then on the Canadian side as well, of this amazing wilderness and lakes and streams and waterfalls. It's just beautiful. So I got to go on 2 of those trips, and then when we moved away from Minneapolis, some of the guys signed a paddle and gave it to me as a souvenir. So those trips are the kind of places, as you know, where story upon story upon story is birthed there, right? That's where I learned about portaging. I think I might have mentioned that before, where I thought that portage word was sort of a romantic word. I'd heard about it with canoeing, but then I found the rough reality of when you get to the end of the lake, having to empty all the gear out of all the canoes, and then one guy put the canoe up on his head and balance it on his shoulders, and then walk to the next lake. Could be 40 yards, could be a quarter of a mile, and then put the canoe back in the water, and then put the gear back in the canoe, and then take off again. So portaging was not actually the most romantic thing about canoeing. Couple things that God was at work, because I learned that God is just always doing things all of the time. On the Boundary Waters lakes, the further in you go, the more pristine they get. And after a couple of portages, there's actually no motors allowed, no small boats with motors. So it is pure, and actually in the middle of the lake, you can just dip your water bottle into the lake and drink right out of it and have no worries about it. So on one trip, I was partnered with another guy named Dan, who was a friend of mine, and was something of a skeptic about faith, a little cynical, and I'd been trying to have some conversations with him, not really getting that far, and then rather surprisingly, he signed up and came on the canoe trip. And so one day we were out towards the middle of a lake, pretty far in, and there were a couple of loons on the water with those echoing, sort of haunting calls, and forest and pristine beauty, and it was just amazing. And we just, without really saying anything, we just stopped paddling, and it was utterly quiet, and we just sat there for a little while. And then I heard Dan's voice from the back of the boat, and he said something like, "You know, Dan, I feel like this is God's backyard, and we get to play here for a while." There were things going on inside of Dan that we hadn't seen. And it was just a reminder for me, and it still holds, and it's been proven many times over. God is at work, God is busy, and sometimes we have no idea. And we have to lean in and trust that God really is working in people and in and through their lives as well. The second thing that I learned was keep paddling. Keep paddling. We had one day when we were out in the middle of a fairly large lake and had been there for a while, and the sky suddenly turned cloudy and this wind came up, pretty stiff wind, and all of a sudden there was some choppiness on this serene lake, and we were pretty much there in the middle, and we had a long way to go. And it wasn't so much that we were scared for our lives, but we were paddling into the wind and into the wind-blown waves, and for a while it seemed like we were going nowhere. We were just sort of treading water, and we had to keep paddling to keep from losing ground. It was uncomfortable. Just keep paddling, keep working, wondering if we should maybe turn back, but our guide said, no, you need to keep paddling. And so we did. That was the key. And it struck me that, like in Santa Rosa, like in the United States, we are, of course, in some pretty turbulent times right now. There's health risks going on, there's financial hardship, of course the virus. So we're in the midst of a national conversation in dealing with all of the racism of the past and of the present, and that's a hard and uncomfortable conversation, and some of the events, and it's also a really, really good thing that's going on, and we're just going to have to keep paddling in it. It can seem like a confusing time, can seem like a scary time, but I think the word is keep paddling, stay together, and lean into the wind. Just like when the disciples were out on the lake and the storm came up on them, and Jesus was in the boat asleep, and when they woke him up, he said, and this is a very literal translation, he said, why are you so afraid, you little faiths? You of little faith, little trust. Because Jesus, that's what he wanted. He wanted them to trust him, even when they were scared, even when it seemed like they were going nowhere. He was with them, and he wanted them to trust him. And it is the same thing with us, friends. We keep paddling, we stay together, so continue connecting with people, continue praying together, continue worshiping together, and at some point we'll be on the other side of this. But in the meantime, I think we have a lot of things still to learn, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable. So hang in there, God bless you, and we'll see you soon.